Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of Butting Heads. I'm Adam, and that's Chris. Today, we have a wide assortment of topics today, starting with Biden's withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, Rudy Giuliani's house being raided by the FBI, Sean Hannity being a cool vape kid, and of course, Tim Scott's response to the State of the Union. But first, we're going to start off with Biden's withdrawal of U.S. troops in Afghanistan. So, President Biden has continued the Trump policy of withdrawing the 2,500 U.S. troops that are currently stationed in Afghanistan out without anything tied onto it by September 11th. So, meaning between May 1st and September 11th, unconditional withdrawal of the remaining 2,500 U.S. troops, and NATO forces have been following suit.
Okay.
I think this is good. One of the biggest issues with Afghanistan is, well, according to the Afghanistan papers that were released like 2019, there was never a target goal. There was never an end goal. There was no victory in sight. So why should we continue funneling money into it? It's also really popular with the American public. Wide assortment of people, they don't want to be in there. They wanted to be out of there by like the end of the Bush administration. The only bad thing, and I think this is a very credible concern, is the Taliban. Unfortunately, like Afghanistan before, like while it was under Taliban rule, was facing a lot of human rights violations, from regular massacre of civilians to the Taliban like refusing aid and like sex trafficking and ethnic cleansing.
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, luckily the Biden administration is still going to be like supplying like the Afghan government with like food, supplies, and security. So hopefully the Afghan forces can hold out and win against.
Yeah. So I do have a few questions here for you, Adam, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, sure. Oh, I mind completely, absolutely. How dare you?
So listen, man, let's just decide something right now. Like I think something needs to be said like off the top. Like before September 11th comes to already decide certain aspect of this. And that's just the aspect of this is only successful, right? If he stops trying to overthrow the government in Afghanistan and withdraws like everybody who's involved and completely gets us out of there, right? Or is it possible for this to be done sort of like halfway, still be considered successful withdrawal?
So
Do you
did
get what
you
I'm trying to say?
not the overthrow the government of Afghanistan?
Yeah.
He's been working like the U.S. forces have been working with Afghanistan. They've been fighting the Taliban.
Right. So basically what I'm asking you is because here's the thing, like, and there have been reports about this. First of all, like when you say you're going to withdraw troops, like that just means like, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, the Army.
So U.S. armed
There can still
forces.
be all sorts of like special agents there. There can be CIA operatives there. There can be mercenaries there. There can be private contracted troops there. So there are like classifications beyond just military troops that would still count as sort of like a military occupation and would still be used in order to like overthrow the Taliban. So I'm just wondering like
So yeah, sorry.
yeah,
I guess like I've been seeing like the private contractors thing like float around. And I guess like my question would be like, would you be okay with private contractors in Afghanistan if it was like the Republic of Afghanistan who like hired them?
kind of I do have a take like why are we paying? First of all, it's going to be taxpayer funded contractors to overthrow a government
But
on the
like,
other side of the world. Yeah, so I wouldn't be for that.
the Taliban isn't the recognized government.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Like
They don't
there is
control the
technically a civil
testimony
war in
like the
Afghanistan.
Arabs
Like
do.
we are
No,
picking sides, but
I get that. It's just like, okay, if you saw like, okay, America pollutes, America throws a lot of people in jail, 25% of the world's prisoners are in America. Like if you just pick out uh, all these bad things about a country and decide that you're just gonna, have paid contractors go in there to try and overthrow the government, I just I just don't think that's something that you would wish to happen here, and you wouldn't do that over there. And no matter what level of government corruption there is, I just think it doesn't help people to pay to have their government overthrown militarily.
but
That's
like
where I'm at.
oh, okay, so like I think like a huge issue that we're having right now is the Taliban is not the is
No,
not
but
the
they're
government.
fighting. Then why are you fighting them in the first place?
Well, they are trying like their Afghanistan is in a civil war right now.
Right. So that's what I'm talking
There
about.
is
They're not
there is a
fighting.
government already like there is a government that has been recognized by the United States and like the most of the world. The Taliban is
So good. That's a respected government. Then why would you pay contractors to
we're not overthrowing. We're
fight
like
the
the
Taliban?
contractors. Like my question was, would you pay contract like if it was all right if that government paid contractors to like help fight the Taliban?
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if the Afghan government fought against the Taliban, that's okay with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
I
because
agree.
that's yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I guess I just misunderstood
Yeah,
you.
no, I would be 100% against it if the huge withdrawal was just somehow the U.S. government just giving it Blackwater unlimited contracts to go in there because there is a lot of issue. Like, there's more accountability with the U.S. government than there is with Blackwater. There's more
Yeah.
stricter regulations when it comes to the army and how many people we kill than there is with Blackwater.
Yeah, so then I think we're on the same page with that. So for this to be successful, it's got to be over, right? That's basically what we're
Yeah,
both saying.
basically, I would say for this to be successful, it would just need to be like pretty much the United States would just have to like pretty much be like supplying the Afghan government. I don't think, and also opening up refugees status to people from Afghanistan. Like we did kind of help destabilize the country. Like it's
Also,
the very least we can do.
like I do have a few questions just as I was thinking about this. Like so let's say back in 2001, right? Support them at the time after the Twin Towers had fallen for invading Afghanistan.
Uh, yeah, that's a really tough one because they were known for fostering Al Qaeda, right? There
Yeah,
were
I
there were
thought
there were several like there were deals on the table that the Bush administration really didn't accept. So, for instance, one of the deals was getting Osama bin Laden and bringing him to a more neutral or country. On the surface, that sounds okay with me. Like a lot compared to invasion of like the country, that sounds okay. That seems okay.
and then another question I was gonna ask you was, so like okay, like but at that same time, like Saudi Arabia has been and still is like the number one state sponsor of terror in the world. Um,
I
you
agree.
know, they fostered like, as most people do know by now, like 15 of the 19 9/11 attackers were
Yep.
from Saudi Arabia.
Osama bin
And
Laden
so
finds his roots in Saudi Arabia.
right. And so they were their monarchy was very tolerant in a lot of ways of these views, and especially all the way up like in 2003 were the there was an Al Qaeda attack on the Saudi Arabian monarchy. But before that point in 2003, they were all really they were a lot more willing to like harbor certain people and not squash like certain militant like ideological groups. So I would just ask you then at the time, is there anything that they should have done to Saudi Arabia at the time, who again like the difference is that they're selling us a lot of oil and it would have a huge impact on our economy, so that's a much tougher choice. But do you think they should have done something about Saudi Arabia?
Probably stricter sanctions on Saudi Arabia, right? If we're going to carry over that I was against the invasion of Afghanistan or think that the invasion of Afghanistan wasn't necessarily necessary, probably stricter sanctions on Saudi Arabia. I think one of the reasons why Saudi Arabia like skirts a lot of like attention from like foreign policy is because like they're a global player, right? They know how to play with like all the nations and just kind of make them happy enough. Like that is probably like one of the biggest differences between like Saudi Arabia and the Taliban.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, so and I think it's the fact is like let's say you're the president, right? And you do sanction or do something to Saudi Arabia. And already at that point, like maybe this is a little bit before, but like they were having problems with the gas prices.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and especially since like the 1970s and the OPEC, and we saw what happens when gas prices rise. Like everything becomes expensive, it becomes expensive to ship things.
Yep.
So like it's a hard deal, but like something I always think about is like, so it can't be though that because one country wouldn't economically like destroy us to like go attack them. So like that's kind of fine. Where if we did anything to Saudi Arabia, that would kind of like destroy our economy. So I always just think like, okay, the reason we attack them and invade them should not be just because that's just the easiest place for us to do it, if you kind of get what I mean.
Yeah, I was kind of like when you were like saying that, it kind of like a thought kind of just like popped in my head. I wonder how much like if 1990s happened, if like Democrats went around like campaigning for green energy by saying we're gonna be energy reliant America first, and we don't have to have like all of those Arab countries, being like control of us. Like if they just like completely race baited Republicans into supporting like green energy. Like, I wonder if that would have worked. Like, what world would we live in?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it is true too. Like part of the way you can get Saudi Arabia like without this huge hold on our economy is if we do switch to
to greener energy. Yeah, actually, Saudi Arabia has been switching its output to greener energy too. So, like, that should be telling.
Saudi Arabia has. Yeah, so
They've been like
we
trying to
do have a
figure
lot of
out how to like,
trade over there.
yeah,
But
all right.
yeah, so I mean, that's just what it is with the withdrawal with Joe Biden. And I really hope he does that. I'm rooting for him to do it, but I just know that the forces at hand here that it's just going to be a lot to overcome, and I just
Yeah.
think people should keep their expectations like tempered down about this.
I think like actually something like interesting like I think like in terms of like rhetoric points, Biden has really been like hitting like a lot of like solid points with it. Like for instance, when he was like giving that speech, I think one of the best points that he gives that like I see people do like all the time is the people are fighting in that. That's how long we've been in there, and that's just always like a whole yeah yeah.
Yeah,
Like I've seen that point repeated before, but like it still hits
yeah.
home.
People who weren't born during 9/11
That
are fighting in it.
are fighting in it, and because of 9/11, that's insane.
One thing I do want to ask you, um, real quick too, is So shortly after Trump signed his withdrawal agreement, which is not as good as Biden's withdrawal agreement, but he did sign a withdrawal agreement last year in 2020. And then shortly afterwards, a story came out about how Russians were paying bounties on the Taliban. So these stories came out, and it kind of is leading people to say, okay, look at what's happening here. The Russians are paying the Taliban to kill people, and this guy's just withdrawing. Like maybe this is too soon. Maybe it's not responsible. Maybe he's just doing it. He doesn't know what he's doing. Then shortly after, Biden wins the presidency, and then he withdraws. Then he
Yeah.
gets asked, well, yeah, what about the whole Russian bounty thing? And it's just, oh,
So
we actually don't even think that really happened. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, withdraw. That's actually a good idea now. So I just want to know, like, what your thoughts are about that.
yeah, so like with the initial like Russia bounty thing, I think like the House Arms Committee like maybe overreacted when they completely revoked like Trump's authority to do it back when they did. But I think in terms of like the Russian bounty, like the major issue that like I remember reading was Trump knew in like February when he was like first briefed. Then when the story leaked, he denied ever getting the briefing, and the major question was, well, A, is the intelligence agencies keeping stuff away from our president? If so, that's a big issue. Or B, is he just lying to us? Thank God it was Trump, so he was just lying to us about never being briefed on it. But that's
Okay.
like,
And
and
and so wait, you're saying he was briefed on something that never
no, no, the
that you
intelligence
think actually
agency, the
occurred?
CIA, have um, did brief him in February about a
They brief him
possible
on what?
to brief him on like some information that they got. The only new revelation that like Biden changed was that it was low, that like the that a no other agency like corroborated the information, or and b the information that the CIA got was like very low ranked in like the intelligence field. They got it from one detainee's like financial account and like could not find anything else. So it was more about, this could be a thing.
Okay, yeah. I just think there is an aspect of this that's pretty telling about the media too. When they first heard about the withdrawal last year, they did write a lot of stories that sort of propelled the narrative that maybe getting out isn't the right time now, and Trump doesn't really know what he's doing. And also, like, what do you think about those stories that come out? Oh, um if they withdraw, like women's rights in Afghanistan could be over. Because
I
I
mean, they
mean, like,
could be.
okay, there is some sort of a threat there, but don't you think that's sort of a journalist slowly just trying to get people used to the
So
idea, like maybe we should still be there?
no. Okay, so first off, it depends on like where in the publications you find these things. Opinion columns in any publication are a hotbed of just garbage. A lot of times when I see people like say, look at this publication saying this, look at this publication saying that, it's mostly like in like in like an opinion column. Most of the time, if you do see something like, for instance, Afghanistan women's rights may be at risk with withdrawal, or many fear women's rights
Yeah,
in Afghanistan if withdrawal.
sure.
That's most likely like coming from a quote from someone who's on the ground or someone who is like very familiar with Afghanistan.
Okay, no, yeah, no, I get that, but don't you think that that story is a story? What is the what do I take from that? Okay, yeah, that means
That
we
there
should
may be
withdraw troops
certain
from there.
that like it
Right?
may
I wouldn't
not.
come to that conclusion from reading that. I would read, "Oh my God, that's a mistake. We should probably not do this." Right?
So you
That's the
could, well,
conclusion
so
that you would have to come to.
no, it's not like you can hold like a lot, like the world is a very gray, like it's a very gray world out there, right? Very few things are black and white. Few things are wholly good and wholly bad. It's kind of up for us to kind of like do the mental calculus of like, well, this is good, but then again, this bad thing is happening. So then you have to like weigh the scales and see where it ends up.
I
I
I
think
just think those stories are a little bit insidious in the fact that, oh, it seems to be like just a story about something smaller, but really on a grand scale.
so. For you,
Final
as
conclusion would
so,
be that we shouldn't withdraw these troops. That
what
would
would
be a
the
mistake.
alternative be? The reporter just not just saying anything. It should just be uh, all good that things that people are
Well, I'm
being.
sure if I pulled up one of these opinion articles about it,
Well,
I
for
mean, yeah, where is the big it's
well,
just,
okay,
with
wait,
these newspapers there is a slant
wait. Are
towards.
we talking about opinion articles or are we talking about like actual like journalism articles?
Well, yeah, I thought we stopped and well, that's what I'm saying. Like even like opinion articles, I don't
There,
think, I don't think that if a newspaper just puts out opinion articles that lead people to believe that we want to keep all these troops all over the place, I don't think that's as innocent as, oh, well, it's just a hotbed of garbage. That's how the opinion articles are, even if it is just opinion articles, which, I mean, I don't know about this specific story, but with a lot of stories, it's not just the opinion section, but
so
even just with that, yeah, papers still use that to push interests that are not in our interests.
so unless you see like an editorial or an op-ed, that's very rare. That it's not going to be like a full reflection of the paper. You can say that the outlet has some responsibility to like what writers it platforms and what story it platforms. However, most of the time you can find both sides in everything. At least like whenever I try to look up an issue, like I always seem to like find they might not be on the same day, they may not be on the same week. Actually, for like I did like a paper on like a comparative analysis between like the New York Times and Le Monde, a French publication, about climate change back in the 90s and how it was like first being reported. And as part of the analysis, I would, of course, like my section was like the opinion section. And so I would look at the opinion sections and yeah, I would find most things being pro and con of climate change. However, I would always like find that like certain articles would get like the Sunday treatment, which is like whenever like this publication would always run. So yeah, I like there could be issues with opinion sections,
Well, yeah, well,
depending on what
okay.
writers get the preferred dates. But like unfortunately, those writers that is usually done to a marketing decision. If you are a person who gets highly clicked rates in the publication will put you in the Sunday edition
Yeah, so,
because that's when
but
people read.
w- when you bring up that it's marketing and it's about clicks,
Yeah, that's my issue with
then you're sort
journalism.
of admitting that these newspapers aren't doing what's right. They're doing what produces the most clicks and what makes them the most money. So I think
Yep.
that ultimately jives with like what I'm saying here.
I mean,
And let's say there was a Fox publication, a right-wing publication that the entire opinion section is nothing but like corporate tax cuts and opinions about that sort of thing. You wouldn't say to yourself, well, oh, that's just the opinion section that
yeah, they're playing to their
doesn't
market
sway
base.
people, or that only sways the stupid people who don't matter anyway,
No,
or like
it
I really don't
sways
know. That's
it
still
sways the
important
people
even if
who
it's just
can
an opinion
afford
section.
like the Wall Street Journal. To people who are already right leaning.
It still has a sway on people, and like you said,
Look,
it's
you know
more
what? I
about
agree. I
clicks and
agree. It
ratings.
does.
So
Because it adds certain legitimacy to certain arguments. Because a lot of people who are jack or are like really bad and like always like to quote opinion sections as if they were like on the same level as like studies, or they will quote an opinion section about a certain study and then you find out the opinion section. Like, if I had to like remove anything from journalism, it would be opinion sections, 100%. Unfortunately, they bring in a lot of clicks, and publications need money.
yeah, and one more point I did want to bring up. We'll see what you say about this too. Is In the 1980s, as you know, there was a civil war in Afghanistan, and we sided with a group called the Mujahideen, who ended up taking over Afghanistan, who ended up becoming the Taliban. So, just bringing up
Yeah.
the point that it's a little dumb to spend 20 years and trillions of dollars overthrowing a government that we installed probably like 30 years before this.
There was a civil war in between, or like the Taliban wasn't necessarily like alive. Like they were like kids at the time of like the 1980s. Like I agree with you. That like we definitely played a huge role in the formation. Like for instance, the U.S. during this part was actually printing books that would actually like help foster like textbooks that would actually help foster like radical Islamism. And it's just like I was reading that today as I was doing research. I'm like, and it was like from like the University of Nebraska, and it was just like, what?
I have heard that.
Yeah, and that's just
Yeah.
like so
So,
effed up.
so yeah, and I know a lot of people like to separate the Mujahideen from the Taliban, but it's ultimately of
That they
installing a
were
government that
part
is a
of, so like yeah, and like the United States was like assisting like a united front that the Mujahideen was a part of. Like we did end up supporting the Mujahideen, but it's not like we're like, well, Reagan was actually with the Mujahideen in his office. Yeah.
yeah, they supplied them with weapons, and it was part of the Cold War,
Yeah, like
trying to.
unfortunately, like the enemy of my enemy isn't necessarily a good person either, right? Foreign policymakers and the Reagan administration made the decision that in order to fight Afghanistan, in order to fight the USSR, we have to like foster this fundamentalism in Afghanistan. And
Yeah, that was a
unfortunately, you
mistake.
reap what you sow.
That was a mistake. And one more thing I did want to bring up. So I found this old article that was written on September 12th, 2001 from CNN, and it's just like pretty good how oh shoot, how it shows you that like a Taliban diplomat right after 9/11, you know, was quoted as saying, "Oh, you know, like something like we feel really bad for like all the families and they were against the attack completely and but I think it's just funny how CNN came out with that September 12th, but then, you know, once it was figured out
That they
which
were
way we're
hiding
going
Al
to be
Qaeda
going with
training
this,
camps.
couldn't really come out with anything that would sort of humanize the Taliban in any sort of way. And it's just funny seeing how they kind of did that on accident a little bit. And also in the article, because it's the next day, they're still like, yeah, we're pretty sure that this was Al Qaeda doing this, but also you never know. It could be Palestinian terrorists as well.
So,
So I just loved how CNN sort of like threw in the Palestinian terrorists into this article.
so the issue with taking like news articles from specific dates, especially after like major events happened that nobody knew about, is that journalism tells like the first draft of history, right? However, it doesn't tell the complete history. That comes later when you actually have time to sift through like all the information and when things are like actually found and discovered. If they were trying to say maybe it was a Palestinian organization or we think it's Al Qaeda, that's only because like our intelligence agencies or whoever was there was
Right,
like quoting, here's who we're
right.
looking into. Both groups were known at the time for conducting terrorist attacks. I forget if Al Qaeda took like responsibility for like 9/11 on the day of 9/11, but ISIS oftentimes takes responsibility for attacks that like they don't commit. So,
Al Qaeda did not take responsibility as of September 12th, but I would imagine shortly thereafter it was
right.
either figured out or they took
Yeah,
responsibility.
cuz I remember when I was a kid like watching like just seeing like bin Laden's like weird video messages to the world or against the US. Those always scared the hell out of me.
But I do just think that that shortly thereafter, of course, you could probably barely ever find an article that would sort of, because like I think the whole thing that the Taliban and Al Qaeda were like just one unit, and I think that that's a little bit, that was like overstretched to kind of like get the war going. And you can see that like the Taliban is not about these attacks, but also at the same time they're not about having US forces coming in and, you know, destroying these people, or even they're just not about extraditing people to the United States for whatever political reason they had. It wasn't about like them being terrorists themselves. And also I do want to say that as I was researching for this, like the Taliban is not considered a terrorist group um by the US government. So the US government has a list of terrorist groups and the Taliban is not on there. So, yeah, I think there was a lot done like to kind of confuse that the Taliban and Al Qaeda are sort of like hand in hand with each other when that's not
Wait, at
actually the
the
case.
time of 9/11 or today?
Well, yeah, I think no.
Because
Well,
I know,
I
like, at the
believe
time of 9/11, they were technically seen by a lot of countries as, like, the recognized, like, government of Afghanistan. So that,
right, and they were harboring Al Qaeda.
yeah.
But it's more of the fact of like it like legally they don't want to extradite people to the United States rather than, oh, we agree with terrorist views, and that's why we don't want to extradite them. It was more political rather than um about like is about extremist Islam.
Hmm. Yeah, that's neat.
But
Taliban is not
anyway,
recognized as a terrorist organization
yeah,
by the United
it's
States.
not right. It's accused because it didn't go out, get everyone from Al Qaeda and put them on trial and,
Hmm.
whatever happened to them. They were against doing that, which isn't the same as agreeing with like what they do.
I would hope not.
But anyway, is there anything else on this topic that you wanted to add, or did we kind of like cover everything?
um, yeah, I think we covered everything. We
All right.
both agree that the withdrawal on paper is a good thing. It should hopefully not be privatized, and that do you think that the United States government should still be like offering aid to like the Afghanistan government who we've been supporting?
If it's guns, if it's things, if it's food, but it's food to feed soldiers who are, I mean, like, I don't know, it does get a little sketchy, but in general, like, if there's hungry people or something, yeah, I'd be for aid. But it is funny how when I walk down the street in like Newark or something, I see someone eating out of a garbage can, and it's just like, is this aid always about like, just like stopping hunger? Because I mean, so
Right, we
yeah,
could be
so
doing it
it's
domestically, but
complicated for me.
okay.
It's complicated. But if you were to tell me that the aid was 100% just in good faith, could we want to pay money to literally just help people, which is not what the United States historically ever does at all. But if
Well,
you told me that that's what they were going to do, then yeah, I'd be for that. But I mean, I kind of don't buy that.
yeah, I kind of think of it as we were kind of a destabilizing source in that country for about 20 years. So I would say that like just pulling out would be like reckless in a way of us saying, well, okay, fix it yourselves. We don't have any responsibility.
Yeah,
That's kind
because
of
that's sort of what
that's
happened
kind
in
of why I
Vietnam.
side on like an aid of like
Yeah, to build, right, to build, yeah, or whatever form that
to kind
takes.
of
But
mitigate the damage that
help the
we
people
did.
whose lives were destroyed. Yeah,
Exactly. Because of and like
we
that's
definitely
where I
owe
find
them
like a
that.
huge issue.
Definitely owe them that.
I'm sorry.
not do just what we did in Vietnam.
Right. Okay.
Hop to the next.
Hop to the next topic. Giuliani, the America's mayor. Oh boy. So Giuliani's house was raided by the FBI over related to Russian investigation. Initial reporting was off only because they a source said that Giuliani was notified of the raid. He was not. But other than that, the reporting seemed to have been spot on. I really don't know how I feel about this. I'll be honest.
But, dude, honestly, what was weird to me was that I looked up so many articles and it seemed a little convoluted why he was raided in the first place. I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to just like explain that, or if you had
So
the
it
same
was.
issue as me.
So yeah. Okay. So Giuliani was in like regular contact with some Ukrainian people who have been known to be like Russian agents or who are listed as Russian agents by like United States intelligence community. And Giuliani during his trips as like Trump's lawyer was going to Ukraine, speaking with these people, appearing on their podcasts, having very good relationships. And they were somewhat worried. Apparently, they were somewhat worried that like certain things that Giuliani was saying was kind of the same as like Russian talking points, and so they weren't sure if like Giuliani was being like an unlisted foreign agent, or I forget exactly how they like classify it or like what the nomenclature is. But that's pretty much what I got from it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it is crazy that they raided his house. I just think this story doesn't make any sense to me. So he was talking to a Ukrainian
who was like,
who we believe. Is there any? Do you know
I
of like
think
how he was tied to
I
them?
don't know. I don't know that completely. I just think they had like very high confidence or like straight out
And
know
he
it.
was talking to them. Like
He was in
what
like
he
regular
has.
communications, like good vibe. Like I'm not sure. I couldn't really find like any
Yeah.
like deeper
I
connection.
mean that's just my only thing. Like it's hard in the court of public
But
opinion
like that's
to
kind of like
decide
why like
about
they raided
Rudy.
his house, right? Because like they're looking
Yeah.
for evidence, and that's why like his cell phone and like laptop were taken.
Yeah, so I mean there definitely has to be enough evidence to get a warrant from a judge.
Yeah,
Judge isn't gonna let you just do that without
without any proof whatsoever.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an interesting development.
It really is, and I don't know. It kind of just like always just makes me like think, right? Because like on the surface, I just know how like right wing media is gonna like spin this of like, well, here's like the feds or big government cracking down on like the Trump people. Donald Trump and the establishment versus the establishment. They just won't give up. They just won't let him retire. And it's just like, oh God, did we just let these crazy people
Yeah.
off?
I
Like,
mean,
I don't know. The
I'm
op.
conv I was just gonna say I'm convinced he's gotten drunk and then done interviews on cable
Oh,
news
he did.
before. I'm like pretty.
Oh,
I
he.
mean, I don't know. I don't know if Rudy's a good guy or not, or if he's a criminal.
Oh, I don't care if he is or isn't. It's just. I mean, I care if he like actually did like if they could like establish like a connection. That's like super big because Americans have a right to free elections, and we should probably, if we know that like someone has like, if there is like any interference, we should probably know about it, and we should probably know like who it is. But oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
So you're saying this was in relation to the 2020 election?
yeah. I mean, and like I should say this, right? Like just because like interference wasn't successful doesn't mean it's not important to combat, right? Like we should know who the
Yeah.
operatives
But
are,
like,
who.
what kind of interference? Like still like what?
So it would be like sharing
What could
stuff that
it
would
be?
like maybe like, so it could be like political oppo research from like a foreign government, which is illegal. It could be just sprouting like the talking points of like Biden has dementia and shit like that. That could be seen as being amplified by Russians and RT, and so like a controversial figure like Giuliani, who always gets the clicks, who always gets the whatever, could sway people into like, okay, yeah.
Biden has dementia.
I mean, it would
I
be like
mean,
this guy's crazy, but like, wow, you know
they,
what? He might have a
they
point.
wouldn't they wouldn't need to tell Rudy Giuliani, right? Biden has
No,
dementia.
they wouldn't. No,
Yes, he
that's just like
actually
the
has
first. That's just
dementia.
like the first thing that popped in my head. But that has been like a talking point that was like
See,
boosted by.
like just talking with people, like you can't possibly explain to me a scenario where conversation is sort of like a collusion. Like, of course, there has to be. Are you saying there was hacking, or you're just saying they told Rudy, gave Rudy things to go on the
I
news
don't
and
know.
say
I don't
as
know.
points?
We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, I think
That's what they're looking
it's
into.
so far it just seems like a big nothing because there's no who, where, what, why. It's just like, yeah, Rudy like talked to some guys. So
So like at the
it's just
moment,
kind of like one of those stories. Huh?
there's nothing to draw like a definitive like conclusion. Like no one should be like seeing the story and have an opinion as to whether or not he did it or didn't do it.
Yeah.
They should just have their minds open to like, okay, maybe we should look into it.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
just
and I
how
agree
I
with that.
take
We
these
should look
stories.
into it.
Yeah.
We should look into it.
Yeah.
But
But like overall,
yeah,
super fucking weird and just like always like, oh, I always like because like again, I come from a very conservative family and I always just think like, okay, what is like my next like family dinner gonna be like? What's my next conversation with my grandpa gonna be like? Are we gonna be talking about how like how Biden is turning into a dictator and cracking down on political opponents and that's just like, oh god. Like
yeah.
like
Um,
I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like, obviously, this should be like looked into, but fuck, it's hard.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, they had enough evidence to get the warrant, so there's something
Yeah, there's definitely like a credible link.
to at least go in the guy's house and take all his stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you want to send the link to the Sean Hannity clip through Discord? Hey, Adam here. So as it turns out, as I was editing this, I found out that my audio died. Like after the Sean Hannity segment, I messed around with some OBS setting, and next thing I know, my mic wasn't connected. Oops. I'm still learning. But if you enjoyed what the show was so far, be sure to hit that subscribe button so that way you can be up to date. Follow me on Twitter at all for 01, I think. Link will be for that will be down in the discussion in the description. Check out Chris's channel at McClure's Revenge. Link for that will also be in the description. And also follow him on Twitter. And if you ever want to like catch me live, I stream on Twitch TV at twitch.tv/all for 00. Have a good one.